Hello, hello. Welcome to today's NEDA Connections. I'm Chelsea Croningold, NEDA's Communications Manager, and I'm so excited for today's guest, Sean Taylor. Many may know Sean as the plus-size girl in season one of The Circle on Netflix, who started a conversation about fat phobia online. Sean was drawn to body positivity in college as she struggled with disordered eating and moved to New York City to be part of this movement in history for plus-size fashion. Her experience as a social media manager for a plus-size brand inspired her to make a statement when the opportunity to be on The Circle fell into her lap. She is now a content creator and a body acceptance advocate and lives with her boyfriend and a French bulldog burger. How cute. Hi, Sean. Thank you so much for being
Hey,
with us today.
of course. Thank you so much for having me. This really means a lot.
Same here. Same. So, for our viewers at home who haven't seen The Circle, and let me mention that like now during quarantine is the perfect time to watch it. But can you briefly explain the premise of the show?
Yeah, so I tried to explain it to like my grandma and it was just a little bit hopeless. But it is essentially like everyone is in this building and we all are in separate rooms. So no one can actually see each other. We all just interact through this like pretend app. And you kind of like any type of like competition reality show, you want to try to stay in the longest, but because no one can see anyone, anyone can be anybody. You don't know who anyone actually is in the game. So everyone's trying to make connections, but there's also some deception.
Yeah, so speaking of deception, you were one of the catfish, so to
I
speak.
know.
So, would you share how you did present yourself on your profile on the show and what the cast response was when they met the real Sean?
Yeah, so spoiler alert, I decided to go in. I'm like a visibly plus size woman. I decided to go in as not that. I have a friend who is like a straight size model. And she's like a childhood friend of mine. I chose to use her photos because I really wanted to make a statement about how, like fat people can be treated differently online. And it just doesn't always feel safe to be yourself necessarily or visible. And I ultimately had the opportunity to reveal who I was, and that was really important to me because I'm just very aware of like plus size representation in media, and I knew I wanted to make this statement, but also, like I know how important it is to have like positive role models, and if I had an opportunity to show like, hey, you can look like Sean and also be, like loved and accepted, I wanted to make sure that people saw that too. So I decided to come out to a few people at first, and then I revealed my actual identity to everyone on the show. And people were really warm and accepting. I think maybe some people were like a little bit skeptical because, everyone's playing games, but overall the response was like, I think one of the highlight moments of the show of being like super just wholesome and positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it also speaks to the fact, as somebody who's also in a higher weight body, that people that don't live in this body don't necessarily realize how, you know, this discrimination, the stigma that we face, right? So there's sometimes a misconception there if you're not living that life. So,
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly the conversation that I wanted to have. It's like it's not like I necessarily thought that I would be outright bullied by people on this show, but people have like implicit biases that they don't even realize that they have. And this game show, it's supposed to be kind of like a social media like experiment. And I'm like a social media manager. I'm like a really fun, smart person, and I didn't want people to just see my weight. And like I wanted people to have a chance to realize like, oh, she has a lot of like amazing qualities that I might not have seen otherwise if I wasn't like challenged in this way.
yeah. And this speaks to the larger social media challenges for most people of all ages, genders, and body sizes, quite
Totally.
frankly, that there's this underlying pressure to, post the perfect picture or compare ourselves to others, whether it's, what they look like or the activities they're doing on social media, and constantly kind of scrutinizing our own bodies and other bodies. So, how has your social media presence and experience changed since you've been on the show?
Hmm. I think, I mean, I have always been someone who, since since I learned about like what body positivity is and really like leaned into like, unlearning some like negative ideas about myself and learning to accept my body more, I've been very visible online. Um, but I think this process made me aware of the fact of, um, like we're always making those judgments, and it's like it's important to just be aware of that. And sometimes like passing those judgments on other people can also be harmful to yourself. But I think the biggest thing that I wanted people to walk away with feeling was that, whatever whatever stigma you feel like you might be carrying, or fears about rejection, like those come probably from a very valid place, but the world can also surprise you with compassion if you let it, and vulnerability is like so powerful and can be really positive and powerful online.
That's such a beautiful message, and I 100%
Thank you.
agree. Too. So, in addition to body image pressures on social media, something that we've heard a lot from the NEDA community members in light
Yeah.
of COVID has been about, like, with this new normal, how everybody's on video all the time, whether it's meetings, social gatherings, and happy hours, even therapy and treatment has now become virtual.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people have mentioned how that has really heightened or brought on body image concerns due to constantly being on camera and monitoring themselves and knowing other people are watching them. Truthfully, for me, the Need a Connection series has been an awesome, behavioral challenge for me because at first I too was very caught up in it, and then the more
Yeah.
I've practiced. So I want to know from you, what advice would you give to folks who are struggling with this body image on camera right now?
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest, it was difficult on the circle to also not be aware of that there was a camera watching you all the time, because it would like move whenever you would move. um, but I didn't have to see myself so that during the filming process. So that was a plus. Um, like I think one thing that I have had to be like really kind of protecting my energy and like disciplined about is like, um like trolls online. Like sometimes like you have like comments and you feel like, oh my God, I have to respond to that. But then it ends
Hmm.
up like depleting your energy. And I feel like the same can kind of go for, these kind of like online video chats. Like if that's something that's really causing you distress, like of course you have that urge to be like, oh, I want to make sure I'm perfect, or I want to make sure I defend myself or whatever. But like maybe you have like a post-it that you could just like put over your side of the camera. And when you do that, you're going to be way more engaged and present than you would be otherwise. That like even if like your hair is out of place, or your face isn't like snatched the whole time, like people are just going to be listening to you. And so they're probably not going to notice that thing. So it might take a little bit of like discipline on your end. And even though I like really hate the discipline word, like it just
The
like
D word.
it, yeah, it's important to just protect your energy. So you might have to like be like, oh, I really want to do this, but you know what? I know I'm just gonna not feel so great if I am constantly staring at myself like this. And I think it's really important to just take some breaks from screen time. Like the amount of screen time that we're getting right now, it does affect your mental health. So like if you can avoid it, like read a book, do a craft with your hands, like it's gonna make you feel, I think, probably like a lot more available for a video chat later on.
Yeah, great advice. Um, I don't think we've had any questions come through on Facebook. If you're watching right now and you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments section. But on my end, as we wrap up, I kind of want to know one piece of advice that you would give to the pre-circle Sean with regards to how you approach the show and your day-to-day life.
So I would encourage myself to like trust my intuition and believe in myself. I was really, really terrified about the message that I was trying to send and would it come across or would people judge me really harshly? But ultimately that like moment of like transformation and vulnerability was something that I got incredible messages from all over the world. So for, people listening as well, just a little bit of vulnerability, it can certainly change your entire world, but it can also change the world of people around you. So yeah, I would just like remind myself that it's okay to trust yourself and lean into that.
Yeah, and leading by example. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually do have one more question that
Oh,
has come.
sweet.
Um, so has or how has being on the circle impacted your ability to cope with COVID-19 and
Mm.
interact and all of that stuff?
It's so funny because a lot of us have like gotten this kind of question, and I kind of laugh because I was on the circle for just like a few days, and this has been months or like a month now.
Right.
Um,
This is
and
the experiment, not the
right,
circle.
right, and it's also so funny because like there I was playing for like $100,000 here. Like I just got my like the $1,200 check from the government. And also, the one thing that the circle had that was better was that, or no, that quarantine, this experience is slightly better is I can have connection with people. I can call up a friend or my mom and be like, hey, how are you doing? When in the circle, there was like none of that. So that's one plus. But I guess it did prepare me a little bit, but it's very, very different because that was a reality TV show and this is a global pandemic. So.
Fair. So
But
thank you
it's
for
so funny because I would have never anticipated having gone through that then I would be going through a similar thing again with the
in
whole
real
world.
life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was isolating before it was cool.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great note to end on. So thank you, Sean, so much for joining us today. I really loved having this conversation with you, and I think
Oh.
that, the NEDA community is really going to value the advice and just the tips that you said. Again, for those of you that have not yet watched The Circle on Netflix, quarantine is the perfect time. So get on it. And yeah, so we will see you tomorrow for another NEDA Connections. And thank you, Sean. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of the day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.